Hi, I'm Corey Lakins, host of Glow Your Influence podcast. Glow Your Influence is a space where women rise, lead, and soar with purpose. So when did the tears flow?
At night, in the middle of the night, driving alone, in the bathroom at work, in the bathroom sometimes at Giant Eagle, sometimes when I pull my car over and no one's looking.
This podcast features powerful conversations with women who've turned adversity into influence and built impact-driven success. Rooted in faith, strategy, and real experience, each episode helps you shift your mindset, embrace your story, step boldly into your leadership journey. If you're ready to glow from the inside out, this show, it's for you. Hello, I'm Corey Lakins. I'm your host of Glow Your Influence podcast. Today we have a wonderful guest, Emily Burkhart. We're going to be talking about creating a life and legacy after loss. Emily is the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Officer at Dollar Bank, where she has served for 13 years. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So we're going to just go ahead and jump into it. We're going to talk about some of your foundation. And I want you to share about your experience with your child and tell our audience a little bit about the diagnosis of your child and what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So it's a lot to unpack. So
let's unpack it.
Yeah. So I have 4 children. Anna's 16, Brantley is 9, Austin's 8, and Bella would be 5 in February. When I had Anna, it seemed like a very normal pregnancy. I was young. I didn't even know what a normal pregnancy was. I was 24 years old. After I had Anna, she was full term. Labor was fine. The doctors started mentioning things about her head circumference, and I had no idea what that meant. I didn't even know that they measured babies' heads. You know, I was still learning. I was a new mom. So her head started not growing the way it should, according to the charts. So we went to all kinds of doctors. We went to all kinds of therapists. And it wasn't until she was 4 years old, after they performed brand new whole exome testing, that she was diagnosed with a CASK gene disorder. We Googled it. We asked the doctors. They had no idea. No one had ever heard of it. Went to social media and was able to connect with some other parents who had children with the same diagnosis all over the country. And we found that there was only 21 girls in the entire world diagnosed at the time. So it was a long, hard path to be pulled into a room and be told that your child would never walk, would never talk, would never live a normal life. So that was a lot at 24 years old to hear. As a brand new mom, spending most of her time, at Children's Hospital, learning what this meant, learning new terms. I was a business major. I had no idea what any of these medical terms meant. And then to be surrounded with doctors who didn't know either. It was terrifying. And I'm happy to say that Anna is 16 years old, and she very much so walks. She very much so talks. She's very much a 16-year-old girl. She's a high school cheerleader. She plays bocce on the unified bocce team. She has friends. She defied every single barrier that was ever placed in front of her. Doctors don't know. They call her a medical miracle. She's been interviewed all over the United States. Doctors just wanted to look at her. Doctors just want to be able to lay eyes on her, to be able to say that they laid eyes on her, because they don't know. She is likely the highest functioning girl with CASK in the entire world. So that's a heavy burden too, to carry. But shortly after I got married, my husband and I knew that we wanted to start a family pretty quickly. A lot of what we went through with Anna put a lot of pressure on my relationship with Anna's dad, and we decided that it was best to co-parent. So we went our separate ways, and we very much still co-parent to this day. We all have a great relationship. We're one big kind of blended family. So right away we wanted to have kids, and we had Brantley, and Brantley was born a beautiful, healthy baby boy. They assured us that this was de novo. We couldn't pass it. It was a fluke, a genetic fluke. We had less than a 0.001% chance of having another child with this disorder. And so I thought, oh, okay, I trust those odds. They actually told us we had a better chance in hitting the Powerball twice after getting struck by lightning the same day. And so we always play the lottery now because those were odds, quite big odds against us that to have another child this way. But we had Brantley. He was born perfectly healthy, hit all of his milestones. Then we were surprised with Austin, and he was the same as Brantley, very healthy, hit all his milestones. And then just when we thought we were done, COVID gave us a surprise pregnancy, and we were really excited to find out that it was a girl, because my husband's family, they have all boys, so she was the first girl. And we were so excited, and the whole pregnancy they reassured me, you're gonna be fine, don't worry, there's no way, it's just genetically impossible. And then Bella was born, and they put her in my arms, and I just knew. I knew. I still can't explain it to this day. It was...
So what did you know?
I just knew she had I knew she had this disorder. I knew she had it, and I just knew. And my boys were born with these honking heads. They were just huge, and Bella was so little and petite, and she just had this little petite head, and it didn't remind me of Anna when Anna was born, but it was just something. Something came over me. I remember feeling like a hot flash come over me. And I said to my husband, I just have this feeling. And they dismissed it, and they put me on Lexapro and Xanax and Wellbutrin and told me I needed to see a therapist because...
So you told the doctors you felt like she had CASK?
I did. And they told me, absolutely not. It's your postpartum. This happens to women after having multiple children. It's your age. And I just remember my gut saying, no, push. And so I talked to her pediatrician at the time, who saw Anna over all these years. So he was very familiar with the disorder. And I told him, and he said, let's get her to genetics. Let's see. Her head was starting to fall off the growth charts around 2 months old. So that was enough for a genetic referral. They did the whole exome testing, and again, they're still telling me I'm crazy. They're upping my meds. They're putting me in therapy, and I'm still pushing. And I got the phone call. I was at work. I stepped outside because I saw it was a UPMC children's number, and it was our genetic counselor, and she said, not only does Bella have CASK, but she has the exact same coding that Anna does, which is even more rare because they don't have the same dad. And so in that moment, I was sad, but I also felt very validated because, a mother's instinct, it's a real thing. So, I said to myself, I'm not going to let this break me. I'm not going to let this define who she is, because look at Anna. I just kept saying, look at Anna. So we got her into all the therapies. We did everything we were supposed to do until she had her first seizure, which was very different than Anna. Anna never had a seizure. And that was scary. That was something I wasn't quite ready for. So
Is that part of the expectation from the CASK disorder?
a lot of girls do have the seizures, yes. And we say girls a lot in the CASK world because boys, it's an X-linked disorder. So boys are XY, girls are XX. So it affects girls more than it affects boys. Boys who are affected by it, they don't survive typically, or they're profoundly affected. So it's mostly female. Bella had her first seizure, and we called Children's Hospital, the best neurologist. I mean, she's like family now. I always tell her when we see her. She had Bella come in right away. She admitted her. She ran all the tests, and Bella was diagnosed with epilepsy at that point, and then put on a bunch of different seizure medications that took a while because they just weren't working. She was still having seizures. She started getting respiratory infections along the way. She had to have her tonsils removed, her ear tubes put in because she had hypotonia, whole body hypotonia. They call it global hypotonia. So that even affected her ability to swallow. So we had to thicken her feeds, and then eventually the last respiratory infection she had took her ability to feed, mouth feed away. So we had to place a G-tube. And so it's difficult to watch your daughter lose kind of what makes you human, you know, your ability to eat, our ability to give her a bottle, our ability to offer her foods. So that was pretty devastating. And, you know, we tried a surgery that placed a silicone bypass in her throat to help her be able to swallow, but she just wasn't able to swallow normally. So we had to place a G-tube, which that was a whole other type of learning. I remember being so scared of it.
Hello, I'm Corey Lakins, your host of Glow Your Influence podcast. We'll be right back with you after this.
At BMW of Pittsburgh, we believe empowerment starts with confidence. The confidence to lead, to grow, and to shine. That's why we're proud to support the Glow podcast, a space where women's voices are heard, stories are shared, and inspiration turns into action. Just like every drive should feel powerful and purposeful, every woman deserves the freedom to define her own journey. BMW of Pittsburgh, proudly supporting women who glow, inside and out.
She came out of surgery and I was like, you want me to do what?
Right.
with in there, you know? And kudos to my husband because he really stepped up in that moment. He wasn't scared of it at all, but I was afraid I would hurt her or overfeed her, and then it could explode in her stomach and just all these scary things. But in hindsight, you know, it was silly because I learned it, and, you know, it was very helpful and very valuable because she was able to get her meds and emergency medications that she needed through that. So, but that was really scary. Then in December of 2023, she was eligible for a Make-A-Wish, and I wasn't going to take it. I said, no, you know, we're lucky, you know, though she has these seizures and things like that, somebody else should do it. And they said, no, you go, you should take this. And the doctor said, no, you should go, you should take this, you deserve this. So in the next February, we went to Disney. But before that, right before Christmas in 2023, she had the worst seizure / respiratory infection she's ever had. She was in the PICU for 2 weeks, and at that moment we didn't know if we were going to bring her home. They had to keep her in a comatose state so she wouldn't seize. They couldn't, you know, with fevers come higher seizure activity, which we didn't know at the time, but you know, she was pretty sick, and it was pretty scary. Her fever spiked to 106. She was brought in by ambulance, and nothing really prepares you, no matter what you go through, to be at Children's Hospital in a trauma room and have a social worker pull you out while 30 people work on your child. There's nothing that can prepare you. It's traumatic. I remember almost blacking out, and because people asked me what were they doing, and I don't remember. I just remember a lot of people coming in and out, and a lot of machines, and she could not be intubated. If they would have intubated a child like Bella, she would have never been able to be extubated. It's just when you have hypotonia of the throat like she did, it'd be too traumatic. She would never live off of it. So they did not have to, but she was on high flow oxygen. And I just remember praying, like that was all I could do. I just, it was to that point where I just said, I asked God, I said, take me, I'll do anything. I remember just in that moment, that was a hit your knees moment of, I'll do anything to save my child at this point, She survived. She made it out. And that was Bella. She couldn't walk or talk or communicate, but she had her way.
Was she at that time?
3.
Okay.
Yeah. And she turned 3 that February. I'm sorry. And she just had her way. Bella had this smile that she was just a fighter. She was the definition of survivor. So we went on a trip and we had a great time, and we had such a blast. We met all the characters. We went, Make-A-Wish is a great foundation. They do. When they send you on a trip, they send you on a trip.
My son actually he was awarded the Make-A-Wish as well.
Yeah. They really, I said to my husband, I don't know that we could ever take them back to Disney, because if we do, they're going to expect that experience. And I'm not sure that we can ever provide that for them. Right. But, it was, looking back, it was the best that Bella had been in a long time. She was so happy. And the seizure activity was, really a lot less on that trip. And they, all of her equipment was there, her oxygen, her breathing machines, everything that she needed was there. And we just had such a great trip. And when we came back, it was almost like she was holding off. She was fighting to go on that trip so that we would have that experience. Because come March, she got a respiratory infection again, and it was just her quality of life. She was having over a dozen seizures an hour at that point. And her quality of life, she started sleeping like 21 hours a day. That spark was gone. She started crying, and she never cried. And so we had to start having some really tough conversations. Not sure if you're familiar in your experience with the Children's Palliative Team, but Dr. Maurer turned into a great family friend. We still talk to him. Amazing, amazing person. Just really meant to do that job. Had about a 3-hour conversation with us. Yeah. And we put her on palliative care for a bit. And that's just an added service to keep them comfortable. Right. And they help us make decisions. But she just kept getting sicker and sicker. She couldn't do therapy anymore. She could barely hold herself up anymore. She couldn't, she couldn't sit up, but she at least could, with assistance, sit up in her wheelchair and watch Elmo. That was her thing. It just wasn't bringing her joy. So we had another conversation with Dr. Maurer, and we said, what do we do? What is her quality of life right now? I said, she's having these seizures. She's crying. She's got a feeding tube at this point. She's now fully on oxygen at home. Our home looked like a hospital room. We had all this equipment, and he said, her quality of life was deteriorating at that point. And so that's when we had to make the really tough decision to put her on hospice care. And the doctors thought she had about 3 to 6 months to be with us. So we didn't let it break us. We said, we're going to enjoy these last 3 to 6 months with her, whatever it might look like. And, he warned us that it could be 3 to 6 months. It could be 18 months. You just don't know. It was going to be up to Bella. When her body was ready, it would she would just go naturally and at home. And so they brought us a bed. My niece and nephew came over and we painted the living room and we put new floors in, and just over 48 hours, we completely redid our living room so that she would have a beautiful, serene, peaceful place. Put her hospital bed up. We all slept with her in the living room, all the kids. And I remember getting a call. I let our priest at our church know what was going on, and they were there super supportive. And I remember him calling me out of the blue one day, a couple of days after we put her on hospice, and he said, I was at a funeral, and he said, I just got this overwhelming feeling that I needed to come give Bella her last rites. And of course, I'm like, that's really strange. Like, what do you mean? You know? And he said, I need to come see Bella. So he came to the house and he gave her last rites, and he said, it's not the time, and, you know, there's no law as to when you get this, you know. He said, I just really felt like I needed to give her last rites.
So you all knew it was coming, right?
We knew it was coming, but again, we thought we had 3 to 6 months. So immediately I thought of my other children. Brantley and Austin took their role of big brother very, very seriously. They both knew how to spot a seizure. They knew how to come get us. Bella lit up when they walked in the room. She certainly knew who they were. So we had children's and all the therapists help us to tell them, to explain what hospice meant. Brantley didn't talk to me for a whole day. I'll never forget that. That's a weep that is a cry you don't ever want to hear your kids make. They were in pain. So after that, we went into the weekend, and she passed away that Sunday, so 5 days later. So we didn't have 3 to 6 months. We had 5 days.
So how did the rate of that affect or impact your family? Because you thought you had 5 to 6 months, and you had 5 days. You got 5 days. How did that impact your family?
The boys, specifically Brantley, he was angry at us. He felt like we lied to him in the moment. He didn't understand. He said, he thought he was going to be able to do more things with her, and that he was planning all the things he was going to do with her in that 3 to 6 months. You can't explain to your child, in medical, you can't explain to your, at the time, 7-year-old what that meant or what that was. So we let him feel those things. It was the strangest thing. And I know that this was so Bella, because my brother and my sister and my kids are all in a lot of sports. They're all athletes. They're in a ton of sports. So for us to be together on the weekend never happens, because we're all at a field somewhere else, We got really bad rain that weekend out of nowhere. And it drowned out, it flooded all the fields. So all sports where we live were canceled that weekend. And so my sister-in-law called me that morning, and we still didn't know at that point she was going to die that day. And she said, hey, I was thinking about coming over and spending time with my goddaughter. Is that okay? We don't have anything to do. So my entire family was there, not knowing, which was extremely rare.
Did you see that as some type of...
Now. At first I didn't. First I didn't. I think just because of the shock. But I remember laying in the bed with her, and my husband was laying in the bed with her, and I looked up and I looked around, and my entire family was around me. And I remember thinking to myself, hold this picture, freeze this moment, because we're all here and this never happens. And she opened her eyes for a minute, and she kind of looked around, and then she looked to the side. And I'm convinced that my grandmother was there. Like, that was my grandmother coming to take her, because she always told me I'd have a little girl. Even after we had the boys, I thought I'm just going to have boys for forever. I'm going to have Anna and then just keep having boys, because that seemed to be the trend. And she she passed. She passed away right there in our arms and with everybody around her. And I think that's what she wanted. I think she wanted us all there, because the last time everybody was in a room together was at our wedding.
I was nervous to start the process to purchase a home, only because I don't like rejection, and I wasn't sure what the outcome would be. I didn't know if my credit was okay enough for me to purchase a home. I didn't know if financially I was going to be able to afford to purchase a home. I can say the process has been amazing. I may have closed with the smallest closing amount I've ever heard of in my life. Miss Susan is amazing, I'll tell you that. I've probably called her over 100 times during this process. I would call her early in the morning, I would call her late at night. I would just leave a voicemail like, hey, I have questions, call me when you have a second. So she's amazing. I love being a homeowner because it's mine. I can change it, I can do what I want to do. My mortgage is lower than what I was paying rent, so it feels better because now I can save more and I can do more.
So what was happening with your family dynamics? So Bella passed away. So what were the family dynamics after that?
I just remember feeling this incredible sadness. So it's a pain that you can't describe. When you lose a child, it's a pain that no doctor can prepare you for. It's an ache that I can't describe it. It's a pain that's just not explainable. And my husband reacted so differently than I did. And I remember being angry with him because he went in the bedroom and he just got into bed. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, why aren't you crying like I am? Why aren't you upset? So that was learning that people grieve differently was hard, because in my mind, I needed him to be where I was. Mm-hmm. And he is just much more of he internalizes a lot more than I do. The boys, they had a hard time being in the house. So, our village, we had to learn to depend on our village, which we're very lucky. We have very close friends and family who helped us with the kids, who took the kids, drove them to the places that they needed to be. But it was very difficult for them to be in the house.
So at this time, you were a woman with a career going on, right? Mm-hmm. So, in a situation like yours, you have a family, you have a husband, you have to care for the family. Mm-hmm. Did you feel the pressure to move on, to get back into, the flow of things? And what did you learn about grief during that period of time?
I learned that grief, it's a tricky thing, because you could be doing so well. You could have a day when you're doing so good, and it can be something as easy as a smell or a taste, or doing the laundry and one of her socks comes out. It could be grief triggers you in the most interesting ways. Mm-hmm. So it really gets you, and when it gets you, it's enough to really break you down. And it takes a strength that took me a really, really long time to find. Mm-hmm. There's also a pressure as a mother to support your children and their grief first. So for a long time, I didn't even face my grief. I was completely putting my grief on the back burner and disguising it, because my kids were grieving so differently. You have Anna, who has to live daily with the same condition her sister had, and she's living, and she gets to live, and her sister died. And then Brantley, who's very gifted, very smart, who understands it, but is still very angry. Mm-hmm. And then my youngest, who suffered severe PTSD, anxiety, depression, lots of hospitalizations with him, lots of treatment with him, because he didn't know how to process those big feelings.
So what did your grief look like to other people, like looking in?
I remember people telling me, you're so strong, you're doing so well. And I just remember looking at them like, what are you talking, strong? I just lost my child. Like, I'm not strong. I'm the weakest I've ever been. But you almost have to put on this act because, I remember my husband and I would go grocery shopping and we'd see people and they'd turn around and walk the other way because they didn't know what to say to us, or they didn't want to have to be in a position to ask us how we are, to even have that conversation with us. So it was a lot of navigating, how do I manage my grief and manage my kids' grief at the same time?
Did you feel like you had to present like you were strong?
Yeah.
Why?
I just feel like as a woman who is educated and a leader and known in the community as Coach Emily, who always has it together, and little do people know I'm truly a hot mess and I'm just trying to survive. I just I felt like if I didn't present myself that way, that people would start to think less of me because I let it break me.
So when did the tears flow?
At night, in the middle of the night, driving alone. In the bathroom at work. In the bathroom sometimes at Giant Eagle. Sometimes when I pull my car over and no one's looking.
Did you experience depression?
I did.
Did anyone know that you were depressed?
My husband did, because it started to scare me a little bit. And that's when I got into therapy, which I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I think even the most quote unquote stable people should have a therapist because I was fortunate enough to be matched with a therapist who went through very similar things. So it was nice to talk to somebody who understood. So that made a big difference.
So what was that time frame from the time you lost Bella through your depression and coming up out of it? Like, what was that time? How long was that time frame?
I think I came out of the stage of shock like 5-6 months later. I remember the guilt was what pushed me into the depression. The guilt of I went through this weird phase where I felt like I didn't do enough. For
Bella?
For Bella. Did I make the right call? Should I have called an ambulance that day? Would they have been able to save her? Did I give her too much medication that made her die so quickly? Did I miss something? Could she have gotten an antibiotic? I went through all of these things in my mind, and that guilt just took over. And the guilt mixed with the grief, I started to believe that it was my fault. And so that was a very difficult stage to go through because I felt like I needed to distance myself from my other kids, because I felt like I just wasn't a good mom. I felt like they needed better, and I felt like I was going to miss something with them. Because you start to become very hyper aware after child loss. The littlest things scare you. The littlest things can put you back into a place of fear. This constant fear. Even swimming, you're constantly in fear.
When did you start sensing an internal shift from your grief and your depression? Like, when did you start feeling like, okay, I'm going in a different trajectory now? So talk about when you started to experience that.
So about a year before Bella passed away, there was another mother in the CASK community who I connected with, and her daughter was very similar to Bella. And I connected with her because they actually kind of looked alike. They looked like they could have been sisters. Her name was Lily, and it was. I remember I got to reach out to this mom because they look really similar. And Lily passed away very similarly to how Bella passed away. And her mom, found her strength and helped me through to find that strength. And I started getting to a place where it was like, Bella would not want me to live this way. Bella wouldn't want me to be sad that Thanksgiving's coming up. Bella wouldn't want me to be sad that the holidays are coming up. She wouldn't want me to feel like I wasn't a good mom because she knew I did everything I could for her. You know, she knew that I exhausted we went to different states. We went to CHOP. We went to different hospitals for second opinions. We went to Virginia Tech. I exhausted everything that I could, every amount of money out of pocket.
Are you resolved with that today?
Some days are better than others, but for the most part, I do know that I did everything I could for Bella. I no longer blame myself for not calling an ambulance that day because I knew that they would have intubated her and they would have had to break her ribs to do so. She would have been traumatized just to die in a hospital room. But it took me a really long time to rationalize that with myself. But I am in that place now. So seeing that Lily's mom was able to find a way to honor Lily by adopting a child with a disability from another country, it got me thinking, like, you know, Bella, she would not want me. She would want me to live. She would want me to appreciate life more. And so that's when it just hit me that Bella should have a foundation where we raise money to give kids that are going down similar paths the opportunity to have things that we were very fortunate. You know, here in Pennsylvania, we're very fortunate to have access to some of the things that we have, to be able to throw a rock to Children's Hospital in our backyard. There's a lot of families who don't have that, especially in other countries.
Yeah.
So this gives me the opportunity to be able to provide scholarships and sponsorships for medical equipment in her name.
So we're going to talk about that. Before we get to that, I want to ask you, how did healing emotionally and spiritually create clarity? Because when we are in our dark place and not quite healed yet, sometimes it's hard to hear what our next step is. It's hard to get clarity. So at what point do you believe that clarity started to come into formation for you?
I had a dream one night, and it's still very vivid, and I still replay it a lot. And I had a dream that I saw her in her little Princess Belle gown in Disney, that she wore in Disney, just running through this field, this like the most beautiful field. And she was running, and she was walking, and she was talking, and she didn't have any pain, and she wasn't sick anymore. And when I woke up, that was that moment when I realized, like, she is in a good place. She knows that I did everything for her. And that was the moment when I realized, like, I needed to find the strength to not move on, because you never move on. You always remember. But to start moving forward with who I am now.
So you were ready at that point to start moving forward because you felt like...
Because I felt like that dream was so vivid. It was almost like her saying, all right, Mom, enough. Like, we're done. Like, you need to get up, and you need to find your purpose. You need to find purpose in this. You need to find the reason why you were chose to be my mom and what you're supposed to do with my death.
And do you have an understanding of what that is?
I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't think I'll really ever find out until I get to go to the place that she's at, but I think so.
So, you started a nonprofit.
I did.
As a result of, so you want to share what that nonprofit is about?
Yeah. So the Bella Burkhart Memorial Fund is an organization. It's a nonprofit 501c3 where we have different events. We actually just had one of our biggest events that was really successful, and we'll get to do that yearly. But we raise money to be able to provide the opportunity for parents and family who have kids with CASK or have kids with a disability who don't have the same access to be able to go to intensive therapy programs, to purchase medical equipment. Insurance companies are really difficult, and a lot of times you have to fight. And if you don't know how to fight, or you don't have an advocate to fight for you, a lot of times you just take the denial and go without. And medical equipment is really expensive. So we are able to provide some funds to help families do that.
So who helped you create the plan?
My sister-in-law was, a big, she was Bella's godmother, and she was a big person who pushed and said, yeah, I think this is a great idea. We could do this. But honestly, it was something that I wanted to do on my own for Bella. I have a lot of people in my corner, who help, and we have a board now together that, we work together, but this was really something that I wanted to do for her. And my husband, kind of helps now to plan the events and, helps me with the legwork, but it was the mission of it was really something that I wanted to build for her.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that our journeys create a vision, right? A vision that impacts other women and impacts our community. And you're truly an example of that. But you're also a professional with Dollar Bank. And because, this platform is about glowing your influence and impacting women and sharing your journey to ascend to the place that you're called to, I want to touch on that because being a professional in an organization, in a banking institution, and all that you went through, there's always this stigma that these corporations don't support women when we have personal family matters that surface. You started Dollar Bank, working at Dollar Bank as customer service.
Customer service in the branches. We called them floats. And I would get a schedule every week to just go help out at different branches. When I came right out of my master's program, and that was a time when it was very competitive to get a job. And I applied, and Dollar Bank called me. And I went and interviewed, and I got the position, and I thought, I got to start somewhere. And there was something about the history that just really attracted me to the company. And the people who interviewed me were so nice. And I just, I said, I'm going to give it a try. And throughout that, I really enjoyed it. I really applied myself, and I was able to kind of start climbing the ladder and a supervisor position into a management position within the branches, and eventually had my own branch that I was managing and leading. And I just loved it. I mean, I loved what I did. And I just I got married, I had a family all throughout my Dollar Bank career. So it was kind of like everything that all my big life experiences I experienced while I was working at the bank. But I think the biggest thing for me was, Anna got her diagnosis when I was working for the bank, and the support that I received. I was able to be my authentic self. And that is so important, to be able to not have to leave what you're going through at the door, and to be able to say, I'm having this difficult time, and to not have judgment placed, but support and love. And it felt like a family. And it wasn't just support from my direct supervisors. It was bank wide, all the way up to the executive level. I always tell people, I'll never forget being at a bank event where Mr. McQuaid was there, and he asked me how Anna was doing by her first name. And I thought, that is so cool. Like, what organization can you say that the president of the bank remembers, not only his employees, but his employees' kids' names, and then to ask me how she was doing, it just really stuck with me. And I remember thinking, like, this is a place I'm going to stay. Because the culture, you just can't beat it, and
it's rare.
It's rare.
It's rare to be a woman and to advance the way that you advance, and to have the support, and to feel that this is a place, this is a home.
Right.
Like, this is a place that you feel safe.
Right.
This is a place that you feel like you can grow and be supported as a woman in corporate America. So kudos to Dollar Bank
Absolutely.
for creating an atmosphere where women can excel
Yeah.
and be who they are, and show that to the world. My final question to you today is, what is one gentle but meaningful step a woman can take toward creating a vision after a deep loss?
I would say, remember that it's okay to not be okay. Allow yourself time to feel what you need to feel, but dig deep and always follow your gut. Think about what you can do with your lived experiences and how powerful that can be to other women around you, other people around you, and how much that purpose can help other people. You know, I'm able to use my purpose every single day in my job, and I'm so grateful for that, because now going from branch life into human resources and inclusion, diversity, and equity, every single day I'm honoring that purpose. I'm honoring Bella's life by helping our employees to understand that they can come to work as their authentic self, to allow our rich culture to allow people just to come to work, be authentic, enjoy what they do, feel supported, feel loved. And I do feel like that was part of my purpose, was to, and now I'm helping. We have over 1,500 employees, and I'm able to hear stories, and I'm able to have people say, you sharing your story and everything you've gone through, it gave me courage. It helps to be courageous, and it helps me to know that I can still be a working professional and have stuff, you know, and go through stuff and have trauma, and that makes me feel so good. And that's why I truly do love what I do at the bank.
Well, Emily, thank you for glowing your influence today.
Absolutely.
I was truly grateful. So from grief, vision can still rise.
It's your boy, my Lord.
It's time to glow your influence.
At Catan Freddie Insurance, we've been serving our neighbors in Western Pennsylvania since 1940. Does your current insurance company offer appliance breakdown, underground utilities, and guaranteed replacement cost? Because we do, and so much more. Working with Erie Insurance allows us to offer superior coverage that fits your needs at a price you can afford. Call one of our 20 dedicated agents to find out more. At Catan Ferretti, keeping you protected is just as important as saving you money.